second part of our two-part series, so the second and last, in fact, of a two-part series on raising the next generation. And so Matt and Angie thought last week really about the kind of spiritual side. How do we sort of embed and really present Jesus to our children in a way that they then want to carry on, kind of following him and worshiping him. And we're kind of doing more of the social emotional side, aren't we? Shall we introduce ourselves? Anna, would you like to introduce yourself to the church?
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Anna. Been coming to St. Mary's for 5 years now. Yes. I was introduced by the lovely Vanessa sitting right over there, by accident, actually. But now I see it was God's calling. I came into church to bring the kids so I could have a Sunday off, I'm not going to lie. And once we got here, the kids fell in love, and eventually they won me over.
It's perfect, brought by your children, in fact. That's the way around we love it.
I'm grateful to them. So they basically, they wanted a relationship. I had a relationship, but it was more Catholic kind of environment. I'm Portuguese. I was brought up in a Catholic, and it wasn't what we have here. It wasn't a community. It's all dictatorship, in my opinion. Can't speak for everyone else. So I never felt like I belonged somewhere. So my relationship with God was on and off. There was moments that I knew God was there, and there was moments that I just felt like, oh, there's no one there. So when the kids started coming, and I would have a Sunday without singing them for a couple of hours, it felt really good. But then eventually, I was always here in the service, and the more I spent time here, and I got to know Lisa, and I saw the difference in my children's life, and I was so grateful for that, because I hadn't had the experience as a teenager. Yes, I had church around me, community, but I never felt like I belonged. And my kids in here, which we're going to go into it, they found a second home, because raising kids is not just about you. Like the old sayings say, it takes a village to raise a child. And I think God knew what he had planned for me, so he came just in the right time.
Fantastic, thank you. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Jenny. I've been here almost as long as the stained glass windows. Well, not quite. They were put in 1819, so a little bit less. I am married to John, who is the vicar here, and I've been here for a while. So the first thing we wanted to kind of really echo from last week was just the sort of the biblical expectation, if you like, which can weigh either heavily or not on us as parents and as people when we're thinking about raising the next generation. So there's quite a lot in the Bible that kind of puts some responsibility on our shoulders when we're thinking about how we respond to and raise and treat and bring up children. So some of the ones you will be really familiar with. Start children off on the way they should go, and even when they are old, they will not turn from it. And for me, that's like, there is an extraordinary wisdom in that verse, which when it was written, I'm guessing the writer wouldn't have known some of the neuroscience that we know now, which shows us that actually how we treat babies and children, and then, so in this massive window when their brains are changing and growing, and then how we treat teenagers, which is another window of massive neuroplasticity, it really embeds this kind of a fundamental foundations for the rest of their life. So when the writer to Proverbs said this, train a child in the way they should go, absolutely right. And now we're kind of finding more and more about that kind of the wisdom of that biblical truth. The next one down, we will tell the next generation the praiseworthy deeds of the Lord, his power and the wonders he has done. Again, it is beholden on us to kind of tell the stories. And I mean, I love it that your children brought you in a way, but you know, you had a faith, but they're telling you something, they're bringing you into something. And it's our job, partly as parents and people in church in general, to just tell the stories. And sometimes we think, oh, I've told these stories. But actually, I love stories because it is the story of how God interrupted our lives, interacted in our lives, and they're different for everybody. And it's really important to hear stories because we really find out more about God and we find out more about other people. This particular one for children, fathers and mothers, It actually only does say fathers, but I thought for fairness sake, I'm going to add mothers, because mothers probably exasperate their children too. Do not exasperate your children. Instead, bring them up in the training and instruction of the Lord. And I don't know about you, but sometimes that feels like a great gift. Sometimes that feels like a rather big burden. Anna, what do you think when you hear those kind of verses? What does it feel like?
For me, I had to, I look back and I think of Mary. This is a young girl that's not married on moment in time in life, which is looked down on. She's pregnant, the Holy Spirit has come to her, told her you're going to have a baby, but she's not had any interaction with the man. She's engaged to be married, and this is our future leader. So I know already with my kids how hard it is to be like when I found out I was pregnant, I was really happy, but as the time got closer, I was like, oh my God, I have someone that I have to look after for the rest of my life. And I know towards the end, women are nesting. So you're concerned, you're worried. So this young Mary is pregnant, has a major responsibility. She's going to bring up Jesus, not sure how the community is going to take it, not sure who's going to support her. Can she turn to her parents? But she took on the responsibility. Somehow inside of her, she's taking it on and believing that she can handle it. From there, as a parent, I had to step back and think, okay, if she could do it, there must be a way that God's going to help me do it.
So I guess when we were thinking about this talk, we were thinking about, we probably even need to have, work out or be open to the idea of what family means. And actually family means lots of different things in lots of different contexts. What does family mean to us? And I think often, maybe in the West, in the white West, if you like, we might think of a nuclear family, so we might think of parents and children, and then we might think, if I was talking about my family, I might instinctively think about my 3 kids and John, and then I might think about my wider family, or I might talk about my birth family, thinking about my dad and my sister and whatever. And I guess in that kind of model, in a way, we have our little family unit, and then the kids they grow up, and they leave our family unit, and then they go and they form relationships and form their own family unit. Now, we're obviously going to have a relationship with that family unit, but we wouldn't necessarily describe it as our immediate family. And there's kind of a huge strength in that, but there's also, it's actually not that usual a model for the rest of the world. The majority of the world, for family, is a bigger thing. It's not just parents and children. It's this essentially wider, kind of much more collectivist, much wider expectation in terms of who is in our family. And I personally think that having the pressure of a nuclear family, and it's all on you, it's all on one parent, or it's all on 2 parents, it's incredibly stressful. It's not a very good way to do family, basically. We need family to kind of be wider. And we need to therefore bring in other people who are really important to us. And we're going to think about that a bit going on in this talk. But I just think it's an important part of how we, what we think about. I was working, I'm training to be a family therapist, and I was working with a Bangladeshi family. And I had to do a genogram, which is like, you have to do like a family tree. And so I'm talking to the dad, and we're putting all the members of the family in, and he's already told me he's really, really close relationship with his brother. And then I say, oh, and what's your brother's wife called? And he said, well, I don't know her name. And I was like, what do you mean? And he said, well, I know her as Babi. So in Bangladeshi, I think this is right, that means oldest sister-in-law. So your name is who you are in the family. Now, there's something that's really nice about that. I kind of really like that. It's kind of like, this is who you are in our family. But it's also, so it has huge strength. This is who I am. And in a more collectivist context, therefore, we're not necessarily raising children to go off and leave us. We're not necessarily thinking about independence. We're thinking about interdependence. So kind of a different thing. So we want to think about, when we're thinking about raising kids, what do I want? So I guess for us, we were thinking about who are the important people, not necessarily in our kind of blood relations, but also wider.
Yeah.
That's enough of me, Anna.
Like
Take
you
over.
said, initially for me, family was going to be me, my husband, and our kids. But I think, again, God came to me and revealed to me that family is not just about who's in your household. Obviously, I know I have a big family, and I depend on my family a lot, but I hadn't realized that when raising my kids, I needed a bit more than just me and the father of the kids in the house. The picture that you see, especially in the West, is your family, the people in your house. And as I went along, I realized that I depended on my cousins when I was not well. I depended on Lisa when I have situations with my children, specifically now they're teenagers, I have to run to Lisa for help. I depended on my friends. I have a really good group of friends. I'm lucky to have that. And just experiencing how I feel as a mother, knowing about their feelings, I didn't feel so... Because as a mom, you feel like sometimes you're not doing everything perfectly well. So now I've come to realize when I was speaking to Jenny, I was like, oh my God, my family is so much bigger than I expected. I thought it was just me and the kids, or it was just going to be me, the kids, and dad. And then as you go along on my life, we do get divorced. So at one point, I'm thinking it's just me and these kids. How are they going to survive just from me? But now I look back, I know, oh no, I had a village. I still have a village, and I'm going to need that village. I can't do it just me and them in the house. It doesn't work. For me, I don't know. There's other people that can do it, but not me.
Well, I think it's almost permission to also invite people and have people in their right and say, you're important to me. Yeah. I mean, we've had a time recently, and there have been people who have literally held us up because we wouldn't have been able to do it on our own. And so we do kind of need that. And if you feel you know, there are people also within St. Mary's that could help you and support you, we think it's really important, don't we, to kind of reach out in terms of...
You have to. Being a parent is about when you are at your lowest or when you're not sure about what you're doing. Because there's no handbook, even though you read all the books, there's no handbook with it. There's no way to, until you have your kids to face you with your fears, because your kids become your mirror. Everything that you apparently want them to do for their own good, they decide not to do it. So you find that you are having to tell this person that looks like you, no, and they're like, but why? So you keep having that battle, that conversation, that what am I doing wrong as a parent? But then you get reassurance from other people, and as we go along, I'll explain my other side, what else has developed for me that I've learned to, just give it to Jesus.
When we were thinking about what the best analogy for family life is, we thought about a tree. So we're going to think about that a little bit more as we go. But and I guess it was first started when, well, you know, the tree is a very old analogy in the Bible. But you know, when Johnny came and did third person and talked about the tree, you know, talked about the water flooding out, i.e. God's Spirit from the temple, and then going down to a place where nothing normally grows, and yet there were these trees growing, and they had incredible fruit, and they were there. And there's something about, therefore, the Spirit of God. So filling and enriching and changing those trees that they actually managed to kind of be incredibly fruitful, even when they really, really shouldn't be. So we were thinking about family life as a tree. Couple of verses, the one from Ezekiel: fruit trees of all kinds will grow on both banks of the river. Their leaves will not wither, nor will their fruit fail. Every month they will bear fruit, because the water from the sanctuary flows to them. Their fruit will serve for food, and their leaves for healing. And we know that throughout the Old Testament, the tree is a really common metaphor. Psalm 1:3, that person, i.e. a person who's trusting in God, is like a tree planted by streams of water, which yields its fruit in season and whose leaves does not wither. Then Jeremiah 17:8, he is like a tree planted by the waters that sends out its roots towards the stream. It does not fear when the heat comes, and its leaves are always green. It does not worry in a year of drought, nor does it cease to produce fruit. So we were thinking about, what does that mean? And then there's this analogy called the Tree of Life. This amazing woman who works with a lot of children in South Africa, and she developed this way of thinking about our lives, and she calls it the Tree of Life. So we're going to have a little bit of think about that now. And I'm going to hand over to you, Anna, to talk us through it.
Okay, so when we look at a tree, we need to remember that a tree the base of the tree is the roots. And that's what I see you as a parent. You stand for your child. You're the roots. The first 7 years of a child's life is so important for you to root them and give them some emotional and support, love. All of that is so important in the first 7 years. How you're rooting your child, what they're absorbing from you, just as a person, how to be a better person for them. So the first 7 years are the roots, and then obviously as a tree is growing and it's been watered and been fed, you can see that it's growing, which you then build the stem? Trunk, there you go. You're building a trunk, and from there we have the branches, which give us leaves and eventually some flowers when they become amazing. And the way we saw it was, those roots are usually your home life, like we were saying, your direct partner, or you as a mom if you're a single parent, because sometimes the only roots they have, it's you. There's no one else. And then what helps us along the way is the branches, church, aunties, uncles, friends, teachers in school, social workers even sometimes come handy in this situation, or even a midwife while you're pregnant, how you're breastfeeding your child. So I believe those branches are needed from a wider community. This is where we bring again a circle of security, for example. Our kids will go out and experiment, but they will always come back to the roots, which is you, but those branches will have been installed already within them, and they will have other people that they can reach out to, not necessarily you all the time, but you are the main. So through Circle of Security, which is a training that we're doing in church, I learned again how to be a parent, because initially the way I was going about it, it's my way or no other way, and we were not getting anywhere. So once I sat down and I went through Circle of Security, it really opened my eyes to what I'm supposed to do as a parent. And me saying this does not mean every one of us is going to be able to live on the system, but it does help you to understand that your kids are going to go out, experiment, learn, and then when things don't go their way, and even when things are going their way, they need to come back to you. They need to come back to feel that love, their reassurance. Even when they have small wins, the first person they're going to think of calling is going to be you. They might speak to their friends, but they know that when they come home, mom's going to be cheering. You would have made a cup of tea for them. You would have made pancakes. I don't know, little things that we do that we don't realize that for them it's very, very important. And I give the example of my daughter. She was preparing for exams 2 weeks ago, and her energy changed the whole household. She was just doing some vindictive behavior towards the rest of us. And we were all like, what's going on with her? We were very confused. But I hadn't realized that on Monday she was having an exam. I hadn't spoken to her. Get a bit distracted sometimes as a parent. You know, we don't touch base every day. So don't hold yourself accountable. It happens. And my niece, Maya, she turned around, she was like, I don't know what's wrong with her. And we were like, oh, maybe we were having a discussion. We were like, maybe she's on that time of the month. And we're like, yeah. But then eventually I called her, I was like, so what's going on? And then she was like, why, there's nothing going on. But you know, there's this front, because they want you to break those barriers. No matter how comfortable you make your kids, sometimes they don't come to you just because they don't want to make you feel worried about them. They don't want you to, you know, they just don't want to give you the burden, because sometimes they see how much you're doing throughout the day. Sometimes they will, sometimes they won't. So then she said to me, oh, I have an exam tomorrow and I'm very stressed and overwhelmed. She just started flooding. I was like, okay. So I was like, okay, can I give you a hug? And she was like, you haven't given me a hug in 2 weeks. I was like, oh. So then eventually I gave her a hug and I was like, okay, how can we help? She was like, oh, no one can help me. I said, okay, should we pray about it? And she said, oh, that's nice. I would like that. And so we had the little prayer. And then I said to her, do you want to have an early night? Do you want to eat something specific tonight? She was like, no, I'm fine. I just, you know, praying does help. So the next morning, just being a mom, I woke up extra early, made her pancakes because she loves pancakes. And I know that she went into the exam with a different energy. And I realized, oh my God, because she's gone to college now, and I'm like, she's so independent, she doesn't need me. And then I realized Circle of Security in front of my face. She came back. She needed to come back to the roots, to be filled again, to feel recharged and know that she can take on the world. Because it's the same with us. If you think about it, we go back to our Father, God. And like I was saying, there's moments in my life that everything's just out of my control. And I have to look at him and be like, Abba, where are you? Like, I need help. I'm finding it difficult. I can't cope. So we're all rooted to the source. So they might be rooted to us, but we are rooted to God. So it's a whole connection that goes hand in hand.
Yeah, nice. And I guess the other bit of this analogy is that there will be storms. And we don't really like to think about that, do we? We like to think about, things going well. But there will be storms, and they are a given. And there will be storms for our kids, times when they're just having a difficult time, where they're making maybe stupid decisions. And there will be storms in our relationships, when we're trying to work out what's going on with them, and we can't really work out what's going on with them or going on with us. And it is really difficult. And, whilst, I wrote down this sentence, we're always going to make, relationships are messy because we will always make mistakes, right? Now, for some people, that is a much easier thing to accept than for others. So I might say that. I would say relationships are messy, and I'm going to make mistakes that hurt my children, and the people that I love most. And I kind of say it, and I do mean it, and I know that I do, but it doesn't sit that comfortably. So actually, when it comes to it, and I'm having to face what has happened, or what stuff which is kind of my stuff, which I've put on them, or, I want to blame them because this is really difficult, then, I want to kind of offload it because it just feels so uncomfortable. And when, I think it was Ruben or Seb, I can't remember which one, but was saying, the cross means that we can come back for forgiveness again and again and again. So when we're parents, we are going to mess up. That is a given. Because we're messy, our kids are messy. It's not always going to be easy. But we can come back again and again and again. And God is in the long-term game. This is not a one, you've had that. I don't know if you used to do this, but when I used to drop them off at school in the mornings, it was a bad morning if your throat was sore by the time you dropped them off, because you had to yell so much at them to get them out of the house and to get to school time. Okay, that's a bad morning.
I still have that problem.
When your throat hurts. See, I don't have to get on to school now.
I still have that problem every morning with Christopher.
But I once did this in a talk at New Wine. I was thinking about if you ever want to feel better about parenting, and you're feeling like, oh my gosh, I just really messed up here, or I haven't done this very well, or whatever, just read through Genesis and read through the stories of those families. They are terrible. Cain and Abel, really did not get on well. Siblings, God seems to be directly parenting them. And, Cain kills Abel. Now, that is not good. If we think about, Abraham's first son, Ishmael, Sarah, a woman who should have known better because she knew the miraculous provision of God, but she becomes like a kind of a tiger protecting her cub, and she makes Abraham's kind of send Ishmael away with lots of consequences, actually. You think about Jacob. Jacob basically knew his brother so well, and that knew he was impetuous and whatever, would promise whatever, and so he managed to trick him out of, his blessing. Therefore, had to run away, big trauma, then has to come back again. Jacob's own children, because if, patterns tend to go round, they then have, he has 2 children that are his favorites, which, openly his favorites. He has Joseph, who I have to say in the whole Bible would be the most annoying brother to have. I'm sorry. But who wants Joseph as your brother? He just thinks he's amazing. Dad thinks he's amazing. Mum thinks he's amazing. God then gives him words and pictures which tell him he's amazing, who he then tells to all his brothers. Were his brothers bad people, or was Joseph just really annoying? It's a question. I'm just saying. See, we assume that the brothers were bad because they sold him into slavery, but he could have been really irritating. Anyway, it's just an aside. And then even Jesus, when Jesus' mother and brothers come, they kind of, there's this, they don't understand what's going on. They don't get it. And they'll say, they said, he's out of his mind. That's not a great start. Here is your brother. He's out of his mind. This is Jesus' brothers and sisters. And Jesus then gets told that they're outside the house, and he goes, you are my brothers and sisters. You're all my brothers and sisters. It's not, family life is messy, and we will be messy, and that is okay. It's just par for the course. And so if you're stressed out, then just know this. We all have times which are really difficult. We are going to mess up, and that is okay. And we can come back time and time again to God and say, you know what? I just didn't, I've made a mistake. And God forgives us time and time again. And we can say it to each other. And that is a power. If we are able to say that to our kids, you know what? I really didn't do that well. That's what a gift that is. Hey, what was going on there for you? Well, this is what was going on for me. What was going on for you? That is a great gift. Anna.
I have something on that. So I was not very good at saying sorry to the kids because I felt like, why should I say sorry? I'm your mom. Just follow my lead. Whatever I say goes. So once we done, not Circle Security, the teenage...
Connected Teens.
Connected Teens, I realized that I don't say sorry, and I have teenagers, so they were learning not to say sorry back. So our rate was just going really bad in the house, and our energy was just conflict, or I'll forgive, if I gave you, I don't know, if I gave you something, it's because we're forgiven, end of conversation. But recently, I turned around, we had an argument or something, but the way I responded to the argument was uncalled for, because I'm a very dramatic mom, I've been told. So initially, when they approach me, I'm like, ah! And then eventually I'll go down, sit down, pray about it, and be like, you know what, guys, we can figure this out. So, but I've never said, like, sorry. So they used to find her at the best mood to tell her, because if you tell her when she's not slept properly, she hasn't eaten, she's just going to blow the whole house down. And I'll go on for hours. So they recently came to me, said something, and I must have had my crazy reactions as usual. But then I sat down and I prayed about it, and I remember Connected Live. So I went back and I was like, guys, you know what? I just really want to apologize for my behavior earlier. It was uncalled for. You guys were just trying to share your thoughts about something and let me know how your life is going from your perspective. But as a mom, so I explained to them how I felt and what made me feel that way, because I was saying to them, I feel like I'm losing grip in my own household. And it's not about having a grip, it's just about trying to set them up with the best principles. And obviously, they're now teenage girls and they're growing, so we do have a bit of a clash sometimes. And I forget that once I was a teenager and I made mistakes. Apparently, I never made mistakes.
Only a few, I'm sure.
No, they don't need to know. So eventually, we had the chat, and then after they were like, you're very grown up, you know. We can see therapy is working. And I was like, what therapy? There's no therapy. They were like, no, Mom, you must be doing therapy. But it was very cool to see that, it was very cool to see our interaction after. We managed to discuss the situation in a much lighter mood. And I'm not saying it's going to work every time, because I still have my relapses every so now and again, but it's helping me and it's helping them to come now. So, for example, last night they went out and they came home later than they're supposed to, but they texted me and they were like, we're really sorry, we missed our bus because it was too much fun. Too much honesty. I wish they had just told me, we missed the bus because the bus came earlier, but they were like, no, we were having so much fun, we missed the bus. So it's been a breath of fresh air, because sometimes as a parent, all you want to know is, are they okay? So you're worried when they're out. I know as well as a mom of black children, my worries are not normal to a lot of a white mom would have. I'm worried if my son is being stopped and searched. I'm worried if my girls are with the wrong crowd in the streets. I'm worried about, are they being perceived as another set of black kids that are causing trouble? Because my kids, they come as a pack. There's like 4 of them, sometimes 5. If you add their friends, they're out. And I know they can be quite loud, but they're very harmless. But to other people, it might seem quite different. So I have to worry about what perceptions they're putting out there when they live in the house. So my concerns when they're not coming home on time is, did something happen? Did the police approach them? So it changes a lot for me. And even in school, there's been incidents through family, through friends, my nephew being approached and spoken to in ways that shouldn't have been spoken to, because for me, it's like, that's an innocent child, but you already make an assumption as a teacher, oh, whoa, something's happening. To our slide. So I know that all of that, when you're approaching them and talking to them, we don't come from a place that we don't want them to enjoy life, but I also know as a black mom, what they want to do sometimes is not as accessible as it is to a mother of a white child. You might be worried in the morning, oh, did they have their PE kit? I'm worried, did Christopher wear the right outfit, and is he got his glasses on so he doesn't look like he has a hoodie and someone will stop him? Do you see what I'm trying? I'm just saying, sometimes the struggles for the parents will change as well. The household dynamic is quite different for all of us, especially because of culture as well. We all have different ways of, that we're bringing up our kids. And I realized with time as well, a lot of what my mom had done to me as a child, and I'm not saying it was wrong. I'm grateful for a lot of the lessons that I learned with my mom. I'm so grateful. But I wouldn't repeat them on my kids. I just wouldn't. And even with my mother-in-law or my cousins, not my cousins, my aunties. My cousins, I think we're all quite similar on what we're trying to achieve. We're a different generation, but the older generation, they have a way of thinking that they, like it or not, we got it in us. It's just stayed with us. So some parts of my bringing up my kids into Christian faith was a bit of a struggle because I needed to strip certain things off. I was confusing my faith and what's available for me at home. They were very different things.
Yeah, so I guess it's kind of being honest about where we've come from, thinking about what we want to do differently, and putting our roots as well, looking at this analogy, putting our roots into God. And I guess that's where we want to end, that we cannot do this on our own. We have to do this rooted and established in God, and we're going to be like those little trees in places where it's actually difficult to grow. But God can do it because God is good and God is faithful, and God, loves our children way more than we ever do.